heard you weren't evil anymore, which kind of makes the hair silly. Or nice.
Television has a funny way of surprising us. You can watch the same character week after week, feel like you know them inside and out, and then suddenly, they change. Sometimes that change feels inspiring, sometimes it's heartbreaking, and sometimes it's just plain weird. Maybe the nerd becomes a hero, maybe the comic relief grows into the show's emotional core, or maybe the kindest person on the screen takes a dark, terrifying turn. Whatever the case, when it's done right, these transformations stick with us. Today we're looking back at 5 unforgettable TV character transformations that completely shocked fans. Moments where writers, actors, and audiences all took a collective and said, wait, what just happened? Starting our countdown at number 5, Steve Urkel. If you grew up in the late 80s or early 90s, you already know this guy. Suspenders, high-pitched voice, flood pants, snort laugh. Steve Urkel didn't just change as a character, he took over an entire show. When Family Matters premiered in 1989, it was meant to be a straightforward family sitcom centered around the Winslows, an average Chicago household. It had humor, warmth, and a solid message about family values. But then midway through season 1, the writers added a quirky next-door neighbor for a one-off appearance, and television history was born. Jaleel White's portrayal of Steve Urkel was instantly iconic. Audiences loved his clumsiness, his oversized personality, and the way he constantly wrecked the Winslows' living room. Ratings shot through the roof. Before long, Family Matters shifted from being about the Winslows to being about the boy next door. Entire storylines revolved around his inventions, crushes, and catchphrases. "And I do that" became part of pop culture. But the real shock came when Urkel literally reinvented himself in the most 90s way possible.
I hope you don't mind if I stay a while. My parents told me not to come home till 10.
Using one of his science experiments, he transformed into Stefan Urkel, the smooth, confident ladies' man version of himself. Fans couldn't believe it. The same actor, the same character, suddenly cool, charming, and romantic? It was ridiculous and brilliant all at once. Through Stefan, Urkel lived out the fantasy of every awkward kid who ever wished they could be someone else for a day. It also marked the moment when Family Matters went from a grounded family show to full-on Saturday morning cartoon energy. Time machines, cloning, even a trip to space. Urkel's transformation shocked viewers, not just because of what happened on screen, but because it changed the entire DNA of the show. He went from supporting nerd to cultural phenomenon, the first sitcom character who truly became bigger than the show itself. And decades later, people still quote him. That's how you know the transformation worked. It didn't just change a character, it changed pop culture. Number 4, Willow Rosenberg. While Urkel's transformation made us laugh, Willow Rosenberg's made us hold our breath. Hers was a slow, emotional metamorphosis, the kind that sneaks up on you until one day, she's completely unrecognizable. When Buffy the Vampire Slayer launched in 1997, Willow was the soft-spoken sidekick. She was shy, brilliant, and perpetually nervous. If Buffy was the muscle, Willow was the heart, the emotional anchor who kept everyone grounded. But as the seasons went on, something stirred inside her. She discovered witchcraft, and for the first time, she had power. Real, tangible power. It gave her confidence, it gave her purpose, it even led her to love. Her relationship with Tara was one of the first major same-sex romances shown with tenderness on network TV. Fans adored Willow's evolution. They saw her go from insecure to empowered, from overlooked to essential.
Spirits of light, I invoke thee. Let the gloom of darkness part before you. Let the moonlight be made pale by your presence.
But then in season 6, everything changed. Tara was killed suddenly, a random act of violence that shattered Willow's world. And in that moment of loss, her grief became rage. The Willow we knew vanished. Her eyes turned black, her skin pale, her voice cold. She hunted her lover's killer and destroyed him with a single word. What followed was one of the most haunting sequences in TV fantasy. Willow, consumed by grief and magic, trying to end the world itself. Fans were stunned. The gentle, nerdy girl from season 1 had become the show's main villain. But the brilliance of the writing and Allison Hannigan's performance made it believable. Willow's descent into darkness wasn't random. It was a warning about obsession, grief, and the danger of letting pain define you. When she finally found redemption, guided back to compassion by her friends, her transformation felt complete. She wasn't the same person anymore, but she'd earned her peace. Willow's story remains one of TV's most emotional arcs. She didn't just gain power, she learned what it cost. And in that cost, we saw something deeply human, how fragile strength can be when fueled by pain. Number 3, Cordelia Chase was never meant to be a hero. When she first appeared in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, she was the embodiment of the 1990s mean girl. Beautiful, confident, and completely self-centered. She was the queen of one-liners and the ruler of the high school food chain. But that's what made her transformation so shocking. When actress Charisma Carpenter transitioned to the spin-off Angel, fans assumed she'd play the same vapid role in a new setting. Instead, something remarkable happened. Cordelia grew up. No longer surrounded by high school drama, she found herself in the real world, a world full of monsters, moral choices, and actual pain. The walls of sarcasm came down. She joined Angel's team, started helping people, and slowly discovered compassion she didn't know she had.
Well, heard you weren't evil anymore, which kind of makes the hair silly. Or nice.
Then came the visions. Bestowed by the powers that be, Cordelia began seeing flashes of people in danger, brutal, painful visions that left her physically wrecked. But instead of walking away, she embraced them. She endured agony so others could live. That was the moment fans realized she wasn't the comic relief anymore. She was the show's conscience. Her evolution from shallow teen to self-sacrificing hero was one of the most powerful character arcs of early 2000s television. Behind the scenes, Charisma Carpenter fought for Cordelia's growth, pushing writers to let her be brave, flawed, and real. The result was unforgettable. By the time she left the series, Cordelia wasn't just redeemed, she was revered. Her journey proved that even the most self-absorbed character can find purpose, if given the chance to fight for something bigger than themselves. It was a transformation that made viewers reevaluate what strength really looks like. Not muscle, not magic, but compassion. Number 2, Carla Tortelli. Now let's rewind to the 80s, when sitcoms didn't often dive into complex emotional territory, until Carla Tortelli walked into the bar. When Cheers debuted in 1982, Carla, played by Rhea Perlman, seemed simple enough. She was the brash, sarcastic waitress who roasted customers and mocked her coworkers. She was the kind of character you expected to deliver one-liners and fade into the background. But Cheers had something special: patience. Over the years, the writers peeled back Carla's layers like an onion. Beneath the snark and attitude was a woman just trying to survive. Carla was a single mother of 8, juggling multiple jobs, dealing with heartbreak, and fighting off loneliness one wisecrack at a time. She wasn't cynical for fun, she was exhausted.
So you finally found out my ex-husband is a jerk. Well, I told you that before you married the bum. I've done my part.
Her sarcasm became a survival skill, a way to keep her dignity intact in a life that rarely gave her breaks. As the show progressed, we saw flashes of the real Carla, tender moments with her kids, glimpses of vulnerability when she fell in love, and heartbreak when life reminded her how unfair it could be. Rhea Perlman brought humor and heart to every episode, turning Carla into one of TV's first authentic working-class heroines. By the series finale, viewers realized something had changed. We weren't laughing at Carla anymore, we were rooting for her. She had evolved from comic relief to emotional backbone, a transformation so gradual, you didn't even see it happening until it was complete. Carla Tortelli shocked audiences not with a sudden twist, but with the quiet power of perseverance, proving that real transformation doesn't always look magical. Sometimes it just looks like showing up again tomorrow, no matter how hard life hits. And last but not least, at number 1, George O'Malley. If Carla's transformation made us proud, George O'Malley's made us weep. When Grey's Anatomy premiered in 2005, George, played by T.R. Knight, was the clumsy, kind-hearted intern that everyone underestimated. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't competitive, he was the guy holding the clipboard, not the scalpel. But viewers loved him because he felt real, humble, nervous, and endlessly caring. Over the seasons, George endured humiliation, heartbreak, and loss. He wasn't a genius surgeon, but he was good. He cared about people in a way that couldn't be taught. That's what made his final transformation so gut-wrenching.
I'm putting my foot down. Either the dog moves out or I do. Foot down now. Me or the dog, which is it?
In the season 5 finale, the hospital staff treat a badly injured John Doe who's been hit by a bus. His face is unrecognizable. He can't speak. As the doctors scramble to save him, nobody realizes who he is, until he reaches out, grabs Meredith's hand, and slowly traces the numbers 007. In that instant, both the characters and the audience understand. It's George. The same man everyone once dismissed as timid had just thrown himself in front of a bus to save a stranger. It was the most heroic, heartbreaking twist in Grey's Anatomy history. Fans were devastated, not just because George died, but because of how he died, selflessly, silently, and without any need for recognition. It redefined who he was. The goofy intern who couldn't get a date or complete a surgery had become a symbol of quiet bravery. It was one of those rare TV moments that made you sit in silence after the credits rolled, the kind of ending that lingers for days. George's transformation wasn't built on spectacle, it was built on heart. He showed that heroism isn't loud, sometimes it's the quietest voice in the room. And for fans, it was a reminder that the people we overlook often carry the deepest courage. Every one of these transformations, from Urkel's cartoonish experiments to Willow's dark descent, from Cordelia's redemption to Carla's resilience and George's sacrifice, changed not just the characters, but the shows themselves. That's what makes great television so powerful. It mirrors real life. People grow, people break, people surprise us. Sometimes the shift happens overnight, other times it takes years. But the best stories remind us that no one is locked into who they used to be. The class clown can become a hero, the villain can find light, the sidekick can save the day. And the person we underestimate most might one day do something unforgettable. Maybe that's why these moments stay with us, because they reflect our own lives, our own transformations. We all have moments where we stumble, fall, or reinvent ourselves. And maybe in some small way, seeing it play out on screen helps us believe that change, even the painful kind, is possible. These stories remind us that characters grow the same way people do, slowly, unexpectedly, and often when we're not paying attention.